Are you wanting to call in more prosperity and abundance in 2026? If so, you are going to love today's discussion with Cathy Heller. Cathy Heller is a renowned teacher, top podcaster, and best-selling author. She hosts one of the top spiritual podcasts called the Cathy Heller Podcast, which has been downloaded over 45 million times. And she's also the author of the USA Today best-selling book called Abundant Ever After: Tools for Creating a Life of Prosperity and Ease. She's a practitioner of the law of reception, and we get into what that is in this podcast and how to be more of a receiver, and has a deep understanding of the universal principles of manifestation. Cathy guides individuals on a transformative journey towards unlocking their highest potential. You'll hear in this podcast that we talk such about amazing things such as really turning on and becoming a receiver rather than always being a giver, shifting and up-leveling our identity, as well as creating an abundant life. Please enjoy my discussion with Cathy Heller. Well, Cathy Heller, I am super excited to have you as a guest on the podcast today. I have read your amazing book, Abundant Ever After, and from there have been really developing and moving in my own spiritual practice and calling in more prosperity and reading more on prosperity. And I'm super excited to dive into your work. And where I want to start us off today is you are a practitioner of the law of reception. And when I hear that, first of all, my brain's like, what is that? And then I think of as women in general, I think we over practice giving. And when I think of the law of reception, I'm thinking you're thinking about like, how are we at receiving? And I think there's so much magic in that. And I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yes. Wow. That's very true. So, first of all, thank you for all the beautifully sweet things that you said. I receive it. So nice that you read the book, and I appreciate that. So, you know, so often in order to characterize things, we use these like words like, what does it mean that I'm a practitioner of the law of reception? I think that that's a way for my publisher when they're writing the bio on my book to explain my spiritual practice, right? And what that means is that a lot of people know a little bit about a lot of things, but not a deep dive. And I think one of the things that people probably don't know much about is Jewish mysticism, Judaism, right? So some people have heard of Kabbalah because Madonna made that popular, Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher made that popular. So the word Kabbalah means to receive.
Mm.
So my studies led me to Jerusalem after college. I was there. I was supposed to be there for 3 weeks. I talk about in the book I stayed for 3 years, and I can't believe now it's been 26 years, but I've been studying Kabbalah for 26 years. And I actually only recently went to the Kabbalah Center and they were lovely, but I actually studied like from the tap, like direct, like learning, living in Jerusalem, studying with unbelievable teachers and mentors and really like unpacking, what is the deep spiritual wisdom that has been with us for thousands of years? Like, what is it that Abraham brought to the world? And it's really the law of reception because Kabbalah means to receive. And so to explain that, it's actually a really beautiful thing to explain, especially for anybody who's following a Judeo Christian practice. Like, what is the heart? What is the essence of where that all comes from? And it's universal wisdom, right? I mean, so many of the things that Abraham spoke about, Moses spoke about, Jesus spoke about. These are such universal themes, right? Same thing with Buddhism and Hinduism. There's so much that's universal, which is why it's so beautiful to study the Dalai Lama or Deepak Chopra. So similarly, this applies to all of us. So it means that this law of reception, my rabbi years ago explained it to me. I talk about it in the book, like a radio. Okay. So the idea is that if I turned a radio on right now in this very room, all of a sudden I would hear music. And then the question that you might ask, but people don't think to ask this question, is where was the music before the radio was turned on?
Mm.
And the answer is it was in the room already. It was hidden in plain sight, right? And then all of a sudden the receiver can access that which is already hidden in plain sight. And so if you take the metaphor further, the idea, the sort of Jewish lens, the Kabbalistic Abrahamic lens, is that everything's already in escrow. It's already here. It's already hidden in plain sight, right? God is infinite and all loving, and this world is net positive. It's not net neutral, it's net positive. And so in escrow, hidden in plain sight, right here, right now, in this immediate moment, you could access, you could tune into all of the abundance, all of it. It's already here. We are the radio, and we don't realize that our job is to turn on that radio. So most of the time, the radio, so to speak, I'm using it as a metaphor, but so our energetic vessel, so to speak, we have a chakra system, right? We talk about the chakras and like, the Far East traditions, but actually
Mhm.
on the Kabbalistic lens and the Jewish lens, those same energy centers in the body, we call that the spheroids. And in fact, the crown chakra, which is like right up here, in the tree of life in the spirot, it's actually also called crown. It's called keter in Hebrew. So it's amazing that thousands of years ago, across thousands of miles, these energy centers in our own being, sort of like antennas, sort of like radios, were codified, right? And Chinese medicine, right? Acupuncture is the moving of energy, right? Through what? Metal, right? Because what does metal do? It conducts energy. So we are a receiver of energy, whether we know it or not. We usually are just not tapped in and turned on. In fact, most people's energy centers are like, oh, off, like they're not even on, right? And so
Mm.
you can tell when somebody's like Kundalini energy is like blocked. You can tell when somebody's throat chakra is blocked. You can tell when they don't speak the truth, when they don't let themselves know their intuition because their gut center is turned off, right? This third eye where we kind of really see clearly, we don't see with our eyes open. We see when our eyes are closed. When we meditate, we close our eyes. We actually, sight makes us blind. We see the physical world, not the spiritual world, right? When we meditate, when we pray, when we make a wish on a candle, why do we close our eyes? Because we instinctively know that we can actually see further. We can see the truth of this universe further without looking at the physical landscape. Because the physical reality is 1% of reality. 99% of reality is that which exists, but you don't touch it or see it, right? Like love. You know when it's in the room and you know when it's not. It's real. It's a real thing. It actually is what makes the world move, right? Energy is real. You can tell when someone has good energy and bad energy. It's what literally makes or breaks an interview, makes or breaks a date, makes or breaks anything is the energy. But it's not something that you could actually see with your eyes, but you can
Mm.
perceive it. We have certain devices now that can actually pick up energy. We can vibrate, we can actually measure frequency and sound waves, which is pretty cool. But the idea is that this radio metaphor is so much more accurate than being just a metaphor. Okay. So the idea is that every single moment, every single morning, every single day of our lives, most of the time people are basically playing static, so to speak, because the radio's off. The mind is a place that we all go to suffer. There's no wisdom in the mind, right? All the wisdom is in the heart. So the mind is like a cesspool of just reactions. It's not responding, it's reacting, which is why every person, no matter who they are, if they've amassed any kind of real fulfillment and success, they have some kind of practice, whether it's prayer or meditation, that takes them out of the mind and into the heart, right? Because our mind is just like the top layer of the ocean. The top layer of the ocean is just reactivity. The waves are constantly moving, it doesn't stop moving. And yet, if you look at the ocean and actually understand the ocean, if you asked a marine biologist to explain to you the ocean and you had never seen it, they would not characterize it by the top layer, which is the waves. The ocean is so vast, and when you go down 5 feet or 10 feet or 100 feet or a mile, it is so still and is so heavy and still that if something moves by, you can see it because it's like glass. That's how still it is. So too for us, within us, just like the ocean, the top layer of us is the mind, which is constantly reactive, but then there's no wisdom in there. Where we actually pull our wisdom from is within the stillness, what's lasting. And we all have that. Like as I say it, you're probably feeling yourself shift there. And your listeners might be feeling that, right? Like, oh, she's right. So most of the time, if we don't set the radio within ourselves, so to speak, we lose the whole day hanging out in the mind. But if you have a morning practice, if you take 5 minutes to meditate, if you take a moment to pray, if you take a moment to journal, if you do anything to get you out of the habitual reactivity of the mind, you move into what is actually where the radio can turn on, right? And then just the way we select the clothes we want to wear, we can select the intention for the day. We
Mm.
could select the station we want to be on. So if we're tuned to scarcity and fear and urgency and lack, our whole day is going to feel like that. But if we're
Mm.
tuned to love and peace and equanimity and wisdom, our whole day will feel like that. If we have the thought, everyone's against me, you're going to find the evidence of that all day. If you have the thought, the universe is always conspiring toward me and that God loves me and God is working through me and with me, you're going to find the evidence of that. So where the radio is tuned is what you receive. So that's the answer to what is the
Mm.
law of reception. That's what I mean when I say we're practicing the law of reception. And the reason we use that in the bio for the back of the book is because most people talk about the law of attraction, which isn't that.
Hmm.
Because the law of attraction is about how we can manifest something over there. We can find a way. And it's similar, but it's not quite the same. And that's why they sort of talked about it in the bio.
Mm. So help me better understand. And I know you've given some examples already, like meditation, prayer, journaling. I'm hearing, the mind is like the monkey mess and the waves, and the heart is where maybe we should be tuning. So when I'm thinking about tools or practice to open my receptivity, should I be focusing more on my heart center chakra or my third eye? Like, this is just where I'm thinking. And then my follow-up question is, I know I have blocks in my chakra. How do you clear those blocks? So
Well,
how do I get more receptive to the abundance and the prosperity? Because it sounds like it's mindset work, but yet also body work.
yeah. And there's one other part of it, which I think kind of connects both of those two things, which is identity, right? So I host a membership where every day I send people a 1 minute meditation. And then every week I host a call where I teach live. And one thing that we do in the membership is a morning practice, which is like 10 minutes. And the first part of that morning practice is to remind yourself of what your real identity is, right? Because the mind wants to tell you what you're lacking, what you're not, all the imposter syndrome. It's the all ego, right? It's really obsessed with itself and very critical of itself and always comparing itself. It's a mess in there. That's not your identity, right? The real identity, and I write about this in the book, and my rabbi said this to me, and it's the truth, is that we're each a master. We're a masterpiece. We're a piece of the master. We're each someone because we're some of the one, the
Mm.
oneness, the source of all creation. We have a piece of, we are an aspect of the divine, right? So the idea is when we set our radio to that first, who I really am is not this mind. It's not this fake story that I've been playing out. It's something timeless. Who have I been since the moment of conception? What is actually me at my essence, right? That connects you to the part of you that is and always will be, right? And that part of you is an extension of the source of the universe, right? And there's a part of us that can feel that. My dad passed away last year, and when I was in hospice with him, all feel that. You can feel there's a body there, but when his soul left his body, you could feel he wasn't in the room anymore,
Mm.
right? In fact, when people pass away in the ER and they try to bring them back, they're using an electromagnetic current to bring the electricity of that person's energy back into the body. So they'll walk over to the person, God forbid, and say they're gone, but the body's still there. So what does they're gone mean? It means the energy has left the body. So that energy, again, right? Where does it go? Where was it before? These are all big questions. But when we come back to the identity of who is that? Who am I really? Right? Beyond the noise, beyond the mind, beyond the constant thoughts that tell me I have to be more impressive, how much I'm lacking, how much more I need outside of me so I can be more whole. The soul is always whole. The soul is not in lack. The soul is always in equanimity. The soul always has compassion. The soul is always there. So it's always within reach. So the first place I would go is I tell my students, the first thing you do every morning is remember I'm someone, I'm some of the one. The second thing I do is I tell them in our morning practice to set the expectation that I can't wait to see the way the divine surprises and delights me today.
Mm.
because it's always a conversation with God all day long. Everyone we meet, everywhere we're going, it's part of our divine assignment. So we're always at the right place at the right time. And so that's a huge expectation, and it will change your whole day, right? So in answer to your question, I don't know that it's like you have to connect with the heart versus the third eye, but they're all working together, right? And eventually they all start to turn on because they all do different things, right? Your feet do different things, your hands do different things, but they're all working together to serve the body, right?
Mhm.
All of the different energy centers within us eventually all turn on, right? And it doesn't matter which one, because you can get somewhere from your gut, you can get somewhere from your sacral authority, right? From that root. That's where desire is born out of. You can get somewhere from your throat for speaking and telling yourself what's true that you've been holding back. You can get somewhere from your heart, obviously. You can definitely get somewhere from that third eye for casting a bigger vision, right? And even from above, from that crown chakra, which like really can feel the life force pouring in through you. You feel something bigger than you loving you into life. So they're all good. There's no one that's better than another. It's really the bigger one, which is what's the full identity of who you are? Who are you? Right? Which is why meditation is so helpful, because when you meditate, it's not about not thinking, it's about witnessing thinking. And then you realize, oh, I'm not my mind. I'm what's witnessing my mind. Oh, so who am I? Holy smokes, I'm the consciousness that's witnessing that. I can even think the thought, I wonder what my next thought's going to be, and then watch it float by. So I'm not the mind. I'm witnessing the mind, which means I am so much bigger than the surface layer of this ocean. I am the whole ocean. And what really am I? I'm a piece of the master, right? We're all connected in this one quantum field. There's so much of that going on. So that's where I would start, is remembering in this, in the depths, in the center of your being. And then I ask people to ask themselves to journal and write down, what is my soul asking me to know today? Because it's amazing how immediately there's an answer. It's so immediate. Every time I do this practice with someone, they're like jaw drops. Or like, I ask that question, what do I'm asking of my soul? What do I need? What do you need me to remember today? I'm asking God, what do I need to remember today? And boom, there's a really clear answer. Like slow down, or surrender this, or give that person some compassion, even if they don't deserve it, whatever it is. It's amazing. And then we spend all day scrolling our phone, all day on our to-do lists. And all we're looking for is the peace that's always one breath away if we could pull ourselves back and arrive at our own door, so to speak.
Mm.
And so who are you? The I am, right?
Mm.
And that's where it begins, with the identity of your soul.
Yeah, when you asked that question, I immediately had a response, and it says, "I
Yeah.
am loved." And that's what presented itself. What did I need to
How
know
beautiful
now?
is that?
Yeah, I am loved. And that's so fulfilling to experience and hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. It does create a little bit more peace and less anxiety and less stress. And it takes you away from the distractions and more into your body.
Yep.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I know you talk a lot about this in the book, and we want to create this abundant life. So, how do we create that, manifest that? What are some tools that you have or that you use when you're membership or when you're coaching people to manifest that beautiful, abundant life?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, it's the natural order of things that we would want an abundant life, because the word for desire in Hebrew is ratzon. And when we come out of the womb and we enter this world, babies have a huge desire. They have a huge desire to eat, to play, to connect, to love. They have insatiable desire. That's actually life force itself. That's a really important big thing. If somebody has no desire, zero, they're kind of like, there's a little depressiveness about that, right? I don't mean I have what I'm desiring and therefore I'm fulfilled and satiated. I mean, if somebody had no desire, it's something's off, right? So desire for an abundant life is exactly what everyone has. Just like a redwood tree desires to become its potential tallest version of itself, it would be weird if a redwood tree was like, I don't desire to be as tall as I know I'm meant to. I want to be small. That's weird. You're not designed to be less than you are. You're designed to be all that you are. So eagles are not made to walk, they're made to soar. It would be weird if an eagle said, I don't desire to soar. I'll be okay. I'll just walk around. You're not designed that way. So human beings are designed to live the most abundant lives. They can create empires from thought alone. They could create an iPhone from thought alone. They can create Walt Disneyland from one vision. How abundant is that? It's pretty damn abundant. It's more abundant than what a penguin can do. It's incredible. We turn thoughts into things. We have conversations. Like JFK said, we're going to land a man on the moon. No one had done it yet. His team was like, what did he just say? The moon? He said the moon, right? Not like Montana, the moon. Did we hear that right? But they did because he said it. So they do. It's unbelievable what we can, like, it's literally that abundant. So everyone, yes, has this desire. But as I said that, and the reason I said it that way is because did you notice as I was saying that you could think of so many examples of people and that we've both known who then quell their desire, think there's something wrong with the desire, or in some way question whether or not they can even have what they desire. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like when really then I give you all these examples of the whoppers of things that seem so not possible that people have made possible, right? I was sitting with a doctor the other day who was telling me that she's using stem cells to regrow cartilage in people's brains. It's like, what can we not do? Is it actually a better question? I was in a self-driving Waymo all through my last 4 weeks of LA. Like, what on earth are you talking about that you keep telling me that you can't have what you desire? It's really fascinating, right? Because that's the first thing I want to say to answer the first part of the question, which is we want to have these abundant lives. The first part of it is we were designed to. Yes. The second piece is most of the time where we get this wrong is we think that we are in lack and we are in need of the abundance outside of us. But every example I just gave you came from the abundance within a person that created the abundance outside of them. Vision, thought, consciousness creates abundance. So we are the maestro, we are the wizard. So when you don't have, like we talked about before, the identity of being a soul connected to the quantum field, right? Identity creates probability. So when we understand that we're part of this infinite equation, as you walk through the world, what you think and feel, your intention creates your behavior, which changes the possibilities that become available to you. So as you go through the world, if your identity is, well, I'm not this, but I am this, but you just collapse all infinite possibility into just one possibility, and that's the life you've been living. But if you understand that God is infinite, this universe is infinite, it's that palpable and potent and pregnant with opportunity, then you understand that wholeness, you being connected to your chakras, you being connected to the sovereignty within you, the vehicle for the light that flows through you, you can literally summon any possibility you want, right? So most of the time, people are walking around not connected to any of that, feeling really small. And instead of having the experience that they are a candle walking around lighting other people's wicks all day long, they're feeling like their candle is not lit and they need something to light their candle.
Mm.
It's like walking around with a iPhone that's never charged and not plugged in. Because true abundance, right? We become a 3D printer when we are charged and when every single aspect of us is tapped in and turned on. What happens? You walk in a room, you become a magnet. People are like, I want to be around you. You have amazing energy. What happens? Your thoughts turn to things. The love that you give off changes every room you're in. You leave every room better than it was. And then, of course, you create the most abundant life. Your relationships become abundant. Everywhere you go, you find significance by bringing meaning to the moment that you're in. You always know you're at the right place at the right time. You're always on assignment because you're certain that God has your GPS. The problem is that most people walk around and say, I'm in lack. If only I could have $1 million, I'd be full. You have way bigger dreams than that, and that's also not how it works. You can't create abundance from lack. When we're tapped into the sovereignty within us, the energy within us, the radio that's playing within us, boom, we can create all kinds of abundance, right? But it's not physical piles of things that are actually that interesting to us. It's the conversations we have. It's the connections we have. when those things start to be what's popping up all around our life, the success and the monetary success is a byproduct of that.
That's deep because that's not how we generally define abundance. I think a lot of people, when we think about abundance, we think about materialism, financial wealth, right? It's not all of these other areas that actually is true abundance, because if you look at a lot of people who have the materialism and the wealth, a lot of them don't feel fulfilled and whole and that they have everything, you know?
Well, yes and no, in the sense that there's a tremendous amount of people who have extreme poverty or people who have nothing who feel awful and lousy. And, I mean, you can go to places like Compton and see people who are miserable, and you can go to Bel Air and see people who are miserable. So you could also go to Bel Air and find people who are really happy and peaceful and loving their children. And you can also go to Compton and find families that are really happy and peaceful. So it's not that the financial and material stuff is actually even a problem. It always still goes back to where you're set in the radio. What's the intention, right?
Mm.
Because there's white collar criminals, there's people who had tons of money and did horrible things with it, and there's plenty of jail cells filled with people who had no money and do horrible things. So, and then there are plenty of people who have no money who are kind, and plenty of people who have an unbelievable amount of money who are so philanthropic and so wonderful. So the financial part, we're allowed to have all of it. We're allowed to have beautiful organic food, an amazing home, great towels, a beautiful car. You can have all of it, but what you really want is is for the spiritual, for the as above, so below. You want that. Yes, you might have a physical life that feels so good. I love wearing this cashmere sweater. I love wearing this Cartier necklace. But what really makes me tick is the quality of my relationships, first of all, with me and God, second of all, with me and my kids, then with me in this universe. And then what is so awesome is that the more we create energy and meaning in this world, the most amount of money ever made comes from that. That's what's so interesting, right? If you think about the people who have created the most wealth, right? Really, that's lasting, right? And we mentioned some of them. Steve Jobs, John F. Kennedy, right? We were talking about
Walt Disney.
Walt Disney, right? It's like, it's from resonance, right? And I know that Kim Kardashian doesn't belong in the same sentence as Walt Disney and JFK, but I was just reading that Skims was valued at like multiple billions. But why? Because people are not buying underwear from her, they're buying energy from her. She's the example. It's the energetic frequency of start giving a damn about yourself. She's the energetic equivalent of I'm going to be bold. I'm going to say at least this is the branding, right? This is the energetic character she's playing, which is it's the reason people want Skims, right? They're not looking at Skims versus just a regular t-shirt and saying, "What's the difference? Oh, what's the cotton?" No, it's the I want to put this on and feel that way. I want to feel that there's something empowered about who I am. So I'll spend more than a regular t-shirt because it's the consciousness of the t-shirt, right? So where does that come from? That comes from the inside out.
Mhm.
So when we think about Steven Spielberg, it's like it's not that he happens to be good at the camera. There are other directors, but there's a story that's being told. There's a vulnerability, there's a wisdom. So that's what I'm saying is that all of the financial success, right? It comes from being a mirror and a match to the identity of resonance. That's what I'm saying. And you're totally capable of having both. And also, you can have a totally beautiful life with so little. Like it's up to you. There's no whatever feels like abundance. Some people they would rather. And Warren Buffett is so wealthy. He has lived in that same. You know why? Because for him, he likes that. He likes going to McDonald's and spending $1.10 on breakfast every day. I wouldn't. I really
Yeah.
wouldn't. I don't want to eat McDonald's. I only want to eat organic food. And I don't want to I really like a nice hotel. Like I really, really do. It makes a difference for me. I sit in first class because it's a completely different experience and I'm not a good flyer. So I'm such a happier person in first class. But for some people, they're really actually happy Truly, they're not lying to themselves. They're really happy with less, so then they should have less. One way that I prove that out is I don't want to have a huge team. I don't want to run meetings.
Yeah, and really tapping into what that is for you, because I think we get brainwashed or convinced or think it could be better over there, and when you try over there, is it better, and really assessing that for you.
I
So
think
how
it also comes down to what your soul path is, because if you're in the orchestra and you're a cello, you have to make a big noise. You're a cello. That's your soul assignment. If you're in the orchestra and you're a triangle, you can't be a cello, right? So
Yeah.
certain people, you're doing your job because you're meant to be a second grade teacher. That's exactly how you were designed. And other
Mm.
people were meant to be a running a hedge fund, or a woman who's, Sarah Blakely, running a company like Spanx. It's like, you'll know because it will just feel like it's alignment for you. It is whatever it is.
So how do you deal with, and I don't know if this comes up for you, but I know a lot of people feel like, well, I think I know, or maybe I need another training course, or maybe I'm just not ready yet, or I have some unworth issues, or I just don't know if I deserve it. I hear some women talk about that. Like, how do you deal with these critical thoughts that come in, or these thoughts that are kind of blocking you from being more committed, or like how do you just deal with them when they come into your brain?
You mean thoughts that have to do with, like, in terms of abundance specifically? Like, am I worthy of this? Or do you mean, like, which part? Just say it again so I understand what you're saying. Which
Yeah,
kinds of
like
thoughts about what?
like I want this, I want to create this, or I want to make this happen, right? As an entrepreneur, want to help more women level up their health. But when thoughts come in, say, I'm not educated enough, I don't have enough talent, or, just self-sabotaging kinds of thoughts come in. How do you handle, or how do you walk with people or coach people around that?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, the mind is doing its job. The amygdala, the mind that we have, was created to protect us from a saber-toothed tiger. So anything that feels new, it registers as danger. So when you're like, oh my God, I've never spoken on stage and I was just invited to, all of a sudden I feel imposter, I feel scared. It's like, yeah, well, you're outgrowing your old operating system, and your mind is scanning constantly for what's new. Therefore, it must be dangerous. It's not dangerous. Like, my daughter is going into ninth grade. She's like, oh my God, it's a big school. Like, yeah, you remember every time we've done something new, we get scared. And then you're like, I got this. I learned to ride a bike. I learned to drive a car. I learned to French kiss. I learned to have a baby. I've gone through labor 3 times. I thought that was going to be so scary. You figure it out. So there's always going to be that. So just knowing ahead of time that your mind is going to try to unseat you from where you're headed because you're outgrowing an old operating system. So that's actually okay. So courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing something because you're scared and doing it anyway. That's how we become courageous. It wouldn't be courageous if a tin man ran into a burning building to save a child. There's no
Mm,
courage in that.
right.
But a straw man or a regular man or woman running into a burning building has courage. So courage is what we need to overcome and say, it's, you tell your mind this is something new. And of course, you're scared and telling me not to do it. But I know that no one's eating chocolate cake on a treadmill. I'm meant to stretch. Being uncomfortable is good. There's two kinds of uncomfortable. There's the uncomfortable walking down a dark alley, like, I shouldn't be here right now. This isn't okay. And that's coming from your gut saying, don't walk down this dark alley, go home, right? Or you're on a date with someone and something feels off, go home, right? Then there's the uncomfortable, which is like, I really like this guy I'm on a date with, and I'm really scared because we're going to fall in love. And then what? That's different. You know the difference, right? We can feel the difference. Part of it, though, is that we are usually so focused on not performing well that will bow out. So the fear of being perceived like a failure will keep us from starting. That's a whole other issue, right? Where it's like it's nobody's business and no one cares enough. Everyone's busy having their own lives that, like, you could just do you and do C work and figure it out, be a C student and keep beta testing things because it's not about them. Your journey's about you. That's a different reason we tell ourselves because we don't want to look stupid, right?
Mhm.
But if you
Mhm.
really just show up to grow, no one starts off being Fred Astaire. He had to learn to tap dance. So that's okay too, right? And you might pivot 5 different times and start out doing one thing and start out doing something else. That's also okay, right? So really some of it is just the fear of not being perfect, which is interesting. And then the other thing is most people, when they get in their own way, it's because they're so outcome focused, they're not process focused. But any process is a process. I mean, even the iPhone, that's the best company that's ever been ever in history, Apple. But they keep making a better phone. Why? Because they can always make it better. That doesn't stop them from putting the next one out, even though they know I'm going to make it better. This is not even the right one. You're still going to buy it, then you're going to buy the next one. Meaning the being in process, if you're not so focused on the outcome having to be perfect, maybe you would make iPhone 4. It was still good. It's not as good as iPhone 17, but I'm glad they made the 4, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
they're okay with it not being perfect because they're a
Yeah.
creative company. They're actually all about creativity, right? So that's how it has to go, is that we have to be willing to let ourselves play and create, and creativity is messy.
It is. It is. And it is like even when people want a certain outcome with finances or a certain outcome with weight loss or, being in the new year, right? It's like, oh, I want all these things. And we can become so focused on the goal that we make the process miserable.
Right.
Oh, and we're not growing and learning from mistakes along the way or listening to our body when, hey, this way of working out doesn't feel good today. Let's
Right.
stop. Just
Exactly.
not just cross it off the to-do list and say, "Oh, if I don't get in, 45 minutes, it doesn't count." Like, hey, maybe only 20 minutes is all your body can do today and honor that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe you'll still get to the goal in the same amount of time, because now you don't have an injury to contend with, which would delay getting to the goal. So I think
Yeah.
it's important to, I know a lot of people are driven, myself, probably a lot of listeners listening, can say high achieving, but if you're so goal focused and you're miserable along the way, like you're not going to enjoy the journey. You're going to have a lot more maybe fails and not learn and grow from them. So I love how you focused on the journey piece. And the journey is always an iteration, right? What
Well,
worked in your
also
20s may not work in our 40s for weight loss, right? So
right.
we're always iterating the process.
Yeah, and also the entire thing we're here for is the journey, really. I mean,
Yeah.
we as a soul, in Judaism and, in Kabbalah, we talk about how every person, every soul has a soul contract, and there are lessons that that soul has to learn. And
Mm.
so everything we're going through all day long is part of that soul contract. And so the soul doesn't care about the outcome, it cares about how much you show up every day for the assignment. And
Mm.
so it's not really about the outcome. That's God's business.
Hmm.
Our business is really focusing on like, did I choose my choices? What are my choices? Did I choose to drink the water and get my steps in? How am I choosing? Am I choosing from integrity or out of integrity? That actually is the outcome for the soul. It's what are the choices day to day that I'm choosing. And most of the time, when people get to the top of the hill, they're looking for the next journey anyway, because it's never about the outcome. It's always about the climb. And it really is. It actually is more interesting building the business than once the business is sustaining itself and making all the money, you're ready for the next project.
You're right. The goalpost keeps changing, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when people get out of alignment or when they're not making the right choices, and how do you, or what advice do you have for getting back to that authentic self, being in alignment, honoring what is coming up and present for you and what is important for you now? Because I think we can feel when we're off. Like I use this example all the time because this podcast started off as drink less lifestyle before I switched over to health habits and epic living. And I didn't have that bottom out moment with drinking. It wasn't so catastrophic. It was just feeling like, hey, I'm a healthcare practitioner and having 2 to 3 glasses of Chardonnay most days of the week, not feeling in alignment.
It's the
I'm
same
just not
thing. And
feeling in alignment.
yeah.
I wasn't bothered by it for my 20s, and I didn't even know what it was in my 20s. I didn't count. I didn't question it, just whatever. It was just a thing.
Right.
But then it became a thing. And all of a sudden my soul is like, yeah, this isn't going to be good. You're a mom. You don't want to be a role model this way. You don't feel good about yourself in the morning. It's kind of like I got out of alignment. And so, women listening, whatever they feel out of alignment on, just wondering how you come back to that authentic self so that you're making choices that honor what is wanting to like shed so you can move ahead and experience more growth in that area.
Yes, I think we always know when we're getting out of alignment. The question is, do we have the courage to choose the alignment? In fact, we always know when people say, well, I don't know. I don't know if I should speak up about this. I don't know if I should leave my marriage. I don't know if I should fill in the blank. I don't know is really, I'm scared to know because we always know. The question is that sometimes it's inconvenient. Sometimes you're like, I'd rather not face the fact that I'm drinking 2 glasses of Chardonnay. Like, there's some reason I like it. So if I actually stop doing it, what has it been numbing me from that I have to now deal with? Do I have the courage to stop getting that buzz? Because there was a reason, right? I
Mhm.
actually did that in June. I asked my husband, for a divorce and I stopped drinking. And it was just such an unbelievably fulfilling experience. But I knew it for 6 years and I wasn't able to do it because I wasn't ready to have the courage yet. And there have been so many things. Like I remember my last job, the last time I worked for someone was in 2005. And I knew it was time to go. I was clenching my teeth at night, so my jaw always hurt. I was dating someone that looked good on paper, but I was not into. I was just like, I wasn't living my life. I was living somebody else's life. And I knew that if I left, it'd be uncomfortable because I'd have to go work for myself. And that's what I knew I wanted to do, but I was scared. So I just kept pushing it down, pushing it down. So I think the trick of it is when we know with certainty that God's got us, that this universe was not designed for us to deny our alignment, then we can choose the alignment because the path will be shown.
Mm.
And every time, and I'm sure your listeners can nod their head along, every time I've had the freaking courage to go ahead and say what was needed to be said or make the choice that was really coming from what was true, everything works out. Last night, my husband and I have now been separated and divorced, and I was so afraid of it for so long because I was so worried about my kids.
Mm.
Last night, he was here for dinner. We have dinner most nights all together. And there was a conversation between him and my just turned 14 daughter. She just turned 14 in November, Thanksgiving. And I saw so clearly that the father he's now becoming, he wasn't able to become in our marriage because he was so asleep at the wheel. And only now that he gives her, it's a kindness that he has that he doesn't force them to come over or so he usually just like tolerates the fact that they don't want to and then he comes here, which is really the right way to do it. I mean, you shouldn't really force kids. And anyway,
Agreed.
we both
Agreed.
we both love our kids so much that we're like, you can live with mommy and when you want to come, you have a room and it's actually very nice and he and I get along really well, so there's no problems. But he saw last night that he had been really hard on her for a long time, and I would always kind of be the buffer, but
Mhm.
now that when he talks to her, it's like texting her, "Hey, do you wanna go Gabrielle, do you wanna go to dinner?" And she's like, "Not really." Or they're together, but she doesn't confide in him, and he sees it now. He said, "I wanna be a better dad."
Mm.
And I realized that all those years that I didn't leave because I was worried about my kids, she said to me today, that was I've never seen him actually see me until last night. And I was like, it's amazing how I was afraid to leave because of the guilt, but because I did it with love and I did it with kindness and the truth, then I knew we could create a co parenting situation where we could be really kind and good. But now he's a better version of himself as a dad. And he's not there yet, but he's at least he can see what he couldn't see.
Yeah. He's on that journey.
Right, but it's amazing how I had such a guilt
Yeah.
phenomenon, as
Right.
if I made this immediate connection, like, "Well, if I leave, it'll destroy them." It's like, "Who said so? What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Right? Only love is real, and something's wrong, and I knew something was off in our dynamic because of his childhood mostly and some of mine, but a lot of what he had gone through that was unprocessed,
Uh-huh.
and now he's actually able to work on it.
Wow.
Recently, my sister, who's been living with us, I said to her, "It's time for you to move out." And it's not because I don't love you. It's because you have a whole life waiting for you. And the longer you stay, you're not meant to be in your 40s living here. You have so much to give. So, it's like Will and Grace, when there was a scene in Will and Grace where he's going to a gay bar because he's gay. And she goes, let me get my things. And he goes, Grace, if you keep coming with me to a gay bar, you're not going to get married. And she goes, oh my gosh, you're right. He's like, why are you living with me? So my point is, it's like the courage to choose your alignment means you get out of the way. You stop trying to control the universe and stop trying to control everybody's divine order, and let the chips fall from your courage and face what's inconvenient. And know that if it's inconvenient, but it's the truth, it has to be done. And maybe it's the best thing for everyone. That's the funny thing. And all of us, you said it at the beginning, like so many women are such over functioners. Oh my God, the codependency of overgiving, actually robbing the person, their path. They need to get more resourceful and show up, but they can't because you're always doing it for everyone.
Yes.
So it's just really interesting,
100%.
Yeah, it's all so fascinating, the journey.
Well, Cathy, I think that was beautiful. And I'm still hanging on to opening up to my receiving because I tend to be over functioning and over giving. And
Yeah,
I
I
think
get
this is
that.
beautiful for me to sit in that alignment, sit with the energy, turn on my reception. So to receive more and all the things that you've shared in this podcast. And I love your book. If the listener is listening and hasn't read your book, Abundant Ever After, please pick up a copy. And if they want to learn more about you, Cathy, please let us know where we can grab your book or the membership that you have and the websites and how to follow you and learn more.
You can buy my book. You can go to cathyheller.com/book. It comes with a free meditation and you can start to get your feet wet. And then you can join the membership, and Sherry, you'll share the link with them to do that. But if you want daily meditations and you want to be in live Zoom classes with me and have an amazing community, that membership is like really accessible and very low price, so people can be a part of it. And the podcast, and I'm on Instagram. I post every single day. I write myself a piece of content that I hope will be inspiring and helpful. But you're so good at what you do. Thank you for such an incredible conversation.
Thank you, Cathy. And we'll definitely have the link that goes out with this podcast and in the show notes if you want to join her membership. Thank you so much, Cathy, for your heart and for your abundance and sharing that with us today.
You're so sweet.
Thanks for listening to the Health Habits and Epic Living podcast. If you're ready to take the next step to improve your health, wellness, and lifestyle goals, head over to www.epicyou.com and sign up for my weekly newsletter. Again, that's EPICYOU.com. Please note that the information in this podcast is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice.